Calling for an oxygen mask over here, my friend.
Hello there, listeners. It's us again for the Fun Show. YouTube and iTunes, you know where we're at, and Twitter as well at For the Fun Show. And it's me, Ben. Hello, welcome.
And SoundCloud, Ben.
And now exclusively, not exclusively at all, also on SoundCloud, thanks to Keno. It's all his work. Anything that goes wrong with it, blame him at Keno on Twitter. Right then, Keno, hi. How are you? Welcome.
I'm good, Ben. Thanks for the little shout out.
You essentially introduced yourself there, but welcome to the podcast. Looking forward to some Premier League chat.
Yes, rather that than Championship chat.
Yeah, that's next week. Right then. And Jack, hi again, you're back. You've actually watched some football this week.
I have. I find it funny that Keno thinks we're joking about the Championship next week. International
no,
football.
That's fine. I'm up for that.
I mean, the Championship isn't on, neither is the Premier League, so...
No, but we can do a little roundup, can't we?
Run a Championship roundup. We could do a transfer roundup, actually.
I think transfer roundup next week. Let us know if you want to know that for the Fan Show.
Yeah, genuinely let us know. Transfer roundup. In the YouTube comments right now, just type in transfer roundup and we'll get on that. Right then, boys. I don't know if you heard this week, but Sam Allardyce, England manager Sam Allardyce, arranged a quiz for his England team. Got Bradley Walsh and Paddy McGuinness to come in and do a quiz. Do you hear about this?
I did now.
I saw that they went to see the team. I didn't know they were doing a quiz.
I love that Sam Allardyce, who was compared to Mike Bassett, one of his first things he's done is get Bradley Walsh involved, which I think
did they get him to do a feature, Ben, or a quiz?
Well, interesting, because this week we're not doing a feature. Okay. In honour of Sam Allardyce, we're doing a quiz, everyone, for the first time ever. We're doing a quiz.
Just to be clear, we can't go to the toilet, and open
no phones,
and Google
no nothing,
no phones,
no nothing. So yeah, sorry for those people that like the feature. Not this week, I'm afraid. Doing a quiz.
Just to be clear, the difference between the two is that a quiz doesn't have a theme tune.
No, a quiz does have a theme tune. Boom. There it was. That's the theme tune. The football quiz. Two theme tunes. That's all that makes it special, Jack. Now then, boys, the way we're going to do this is that there is a first question and a bonus point question. Okay, so the way it works is that if you get the first question right, you are eligible for a bonus point. If you don't get the first question right, you are not eligible for the bonus point. And neither, by the way, is the person opposite. So if you get the first bit right, which tends to be a little bit easier, there is a bonus point available for your faces.
If you get the first question wrong and the other person steals, do they then get your bonus point, or are we just?
No, there's no stealing. It's just a set question for each person. But that said, Jack, would you like to go first or second?
Well, I'll go first, please. I won the feature last week, the first of the season. I'm ready.
So you're going first.
Yes.
Okay, the question is this, Jack. Wayne Rooney is one of only two players currently playing in the Premier League to be in the top 10 goal scorers. Which is the other current Premier League player
Defoe.
In that top 10? That is correct, and that is so far 1 point. For a bonus point, Jack, how many of the top 10 are not English? And you have about 10 seconds, 15 seconds to think about this.
Rooney, Shearer, Defoe. Is Fowler in? No, Fowler might be in. 3.
5.
That's my guess. 3 people.
Okay.
That aren't English or are English?
That aren't English. The correct answer is 1.
Oh.
And it's Thierry Henry.
Hang on, so read the list then. I'm curious. I thought it'd be a bit more.
I don't have it in front of me, but I'm telling you, honestly. It's like, for example, it's like Ferdinand, Sheringham, Cole, Fowler, Owen, Shearer, Rooney, Defoe. There's only 1. It's Thierry Henry. Trust me, I did the research beforehand.
Defoe is the odd name out in that list, just to be clear.
Indeed. Keno, this is slightly different because I've changed it up a little bit. There's just 2 points available. for this question.
Oh.
There's 2 points for every question, gentlemen. That's all. You'll see how it works later on. It's fine. Don't worry about it. Keno, over to you. Which 2 American goalkeepers feature in the top 10 clean sheet lists of the Premier League?
Brad Friedel and Tim Howard.
2 points. Boom, boom.
Wait,
Well
so how
done.
come he gets 2 France and I
Oh,
got
shut
1?
up, Jack. Honestly, just
He's
enjoy
already complaining.
Just
isn't
enjoy
he?
the
I'm
quiz.
confused.
Just enjoy the quiz.
Fix. It's a fix.
Jack, do you want us to bring Paddy McGuinness in for
all
you?
I'm saying
Would that
is,
make
I
it better?
don't appreciate the rules changing midway through the quiz.
Do you know what? Maybe there weren't rules. Maybe you're trying to create rules. Right. Jack, Ryan Giggs has the most amount of appearances in the Premier League with 632. This is for 2 points, Jack, by the way, with 632. But which current Premier League player is about to reach 600? Now, I can give you a clue, but I'll be removing one of the points if you would like the clue.
Don't want the clue. It's Gareth Barry.
2 points to Jack.
Thank
Well
you.
done. The clue would have been he's played for 3 Premier League clubs, one of which was Manchester City. But as you know it, there we are. Keno, back to you. 2 Manchester United players have featured in the top 5 for the most amount of assists in Premier League history. Can you name me one of them, please, for 1 point? And of course, you will unlock the bonus point. If you get
I
one.
would think it would be Ryan Giggs.
Incorrect. He's not. He's not either of the players. The bonus point would have been just to name the other one.
That's quite interesting. I don't know then.
With 78 assists, it is Wayne Rooney.
Wow. That's
and
quite surprising.
With 60,
maybe not.
with 62, it's Ashley Young.
No way.
Aston
Point.
Villa's
Really?
Rose.
Yeah, Ashley Young. Really.
Oh, I wonder how many he got at the Villa. Probably not.
60 of the
Why not?
62. Right then, Jack. Back to you now, Jack.
Hello.
Speaking of assists, who has the most Premier League assists in the history of the league? This is for 1 point. There is a bonus point available.
Oh god, that's a really horrible one. It's probably going to be someone really obvious, but there's so many obvious people it could be.
Do you want to give a clue?
I mean, yeah, go on then.
Yeah, there's no deduction here. It's an obvious person.
Yeah. Well,
Obviously, he's got the most amount of assists in the league, Jack.
it's got to be a constant Premier League club unless he moved, in which case that throws a massive spanner in the works. Thing is, if Ashley Young was in the top 5, like, could be anyone.
He was 5th in the top 5, but he was in the top 5.
Keno, do you have any inkling
I'm
here?
genuinely quite impressed by that, actually. I didn't
Yeah,
expect
that
him
is.
to be in there.
Oh.
Could be an older player.
It's
I'm
probably,
not,
that's
I'm
why
really not sure.
I think that somebody might have retired by now, when it could be someone like Gerrard, but it's probably not Gerrard. Gerrard doesn't get that many assists.
Hurry up, come on.
Come on now.
Let me move things over. I'm gonna go. I genuinely have no clue. I feel like if I don't say Steven Gerrard, and it's not it's not Gerrard. Frank Lampard. Final answer. It's wrong. I don't know who it is.
The correct answer, he's played for 2 Premier League clubs.
And Frank
Is
Lampard's done that.
Cesc
Is this- so
Fabregas.
That is all-time assists in the
All-time
Premier League.
assists,
That went-
86.
That's
that went
impressive.
through my mind. That's the worst.
86.
thing.
The bonus point was, which retired Englishman, as in retired from the English national team, is 3rd on the list?
Well,
Gerrard.
No, it's
Or
James. It's
Lampard.
James Milner, 3rd.
These, do you know what? These are all really
who's
quite
second in the list?
surprising. Yeah, give us the list. I'm curious.
I don't have the bloody list. I think Rooney's
Oh, I
second,
thought
actually.
you-
Rooney's second in the list.
Okay.
True. Rooney's second.
Very
So
good.
what we've learned here is he is the playmaker that England need.
We'll talk about that later on.
You've done your research here, Ben.
Thank you. Yeah, work's gone into this quiz.
I'm sure the listeners are probably learning things a bit as well.
Yeah, so am I. The format of the quiz. Right then, back to you, Keno. Which team have conceded, for 1 point, which team have conceded the most amount of Premier League goals? Is it West Ham, Everton, Newcastle United, or Tottenham Hotspur?
Well,
Who's conceded the most amount?
West Ham, Everton, Newcastle, or Spurs?
Yes.
Well, Everton have been a constant.
I think I know this.
So have Spurs, but
That's the sign for he doesn't know he's going to put Keno off.
No, I'll write it to you in our chat
Okay.
now. And
Where are you putting this?
There you go.
Okay. Thank you.
Can you tell him if he's correct or not?
Yeah, he's correct.
Oh no.
that makes it worse, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. I'm going to say Everton because they've been here the longest.
The correct answer is Jack.
Spurs.
Correct. The bonus point was how many goals have they conceded? I was going to give you
Wow.
within 50. You could have had within 50. Anyone have a quick guess between the two of you? Don't get a point for this, but I mean,
278.
what conceded 278 goals in the Premier League?
don't know. I just pulled out a random number. I wasn't thinking. It must be near 1,000.
Kino, do you know a guess?
I don't know, maybe 500?
No, it's 1,207.
These are really tough.
So no points for you there, Kino. Sorry, mate. Correct scores on the doors, by the way. 3 points to Jack, 2 points to Kino, with a couple of questions each left. Right, over to you, Jack. Who has, for 1 point this is, there is a bonus point available. Who has the highest number of losses in the Premier League? Is it Arsenal or Chelsea?
Chelsea.
Arsenal have 182 losses. Chelsea have 200 losses. So, Jack, you are correct. And for the bonus point, which London club has the most amount of losses in the Premier League?
London club.
London-based club has the highest amount of losses in the Premier League. Just for context as well, Villa have the most, Kino, just in case you're wondering.
Do they really?
They do, yes.
Don't know what to say to that.
With 333.
So just because this is in the Premier League era.
Just in the Premier League, yep. Most amount of losses for a London club in the Premier League is 5, 4.
Spurs. I would
3,
it's a guess, but Spurs.
The correct answer is West Ham. So no bonus point for you, Jack, but you did quite well there. Villa have 333. They are the most amount of losses, and West Ham have 317. So last season for Villa was a problem.
That record for Villa is in danger unless they can go back up. They must be worried.
Well, no, I like to think that they didn't have the least amount of goals conceded. They were second. I like to think they went down just to avoid getting the top spot, so they won't get it.
The way we were going for the 5 years prior to going down, we would have.
We wanted
to make it close and exciting.
Kino, back to you then. Which of these teams has the least amount of wins in the Premier League? Is it Watford, Burnley, Hull City, or Swansea City? Which team have the least amount of wins? There is a bonus point.
Torn between Watford and Burnley.
I've messaged Ben my prediction. Sorry, it's becoming.
Why are you doing this?
Why are you doing this, Jack?
Because I can't steal it, so I'm just going to write it now. So if I'm wrong, then it doesn't matter. Ben won't
I could have messaged Ben West Ham, and I would have got that.
He doesn't get any points for this. He's just doing it to be smug.
Am I right?
Burnley.
Correct answer is Burnley. So you are both right. Kino, then for a bonus point, which current Premier League side has the least amount of wins?
Surely one of the promoted clubs. Or Bournemouth.
Points. He works it out, listeners. He works it out. And interestingly, that interestingly, with 2 questions to go, brings us to 4-4. The tension, the absolute tension. Okay then, Jack. Which of these players has the highest goals per game ratio in the Premier League? Is it Michael Owen? Is it Thierry Henry? Is it Robin van Persie? Or is it Andy Cole?
Can I have the list again, please?
Is it Michael Owen, Thierry Henry, Robin van Persie, or Andy Cole? There is a bonus point on offer.
I think it might be. See, Michael Owen got over 100 goals. He was in that 100 goal list, and that surprises me that he got that many because he's fairly young. Obviously, Van Persie was in the Premier League for a while.
I think I know it, Ben, but I won't message you.
All right, just keep it to yourself here. Be respectful of the quiz.
But then Cole was in such a dominant era for United. I'm torn between Michael Owen and Cole.
And Andy Cole had quite a few years of shit, though, didn't he?
Well, if we're going to talk about Andy Cole's career, he was very good at Newcastle. But I'm not trying to, influence.
Purely goals per game.
Wouldn't want to influence, Jack.
Who had the highest goals per game ratio in the Premier League?
So I can't look how Kino's double bluffing me here, and he knows it's Andy Cole, or knows it's Michael Owen, but wants me to think that he.
Or you could be miles off the track altogether, Jack.
I mean, I could be. This is the other thing. I could be mulling over between these two, and I'm just completely wrong. I'll go with Michael Owen, but I'm not that confident.
Okay, the lowest of the 4. I guess to draw this out now. Yes, Kino?
Could I have a guess, Ben?
I mean, you can guess, but then I'm still going to do the reveal in the same way.
I think it might be Van Persie.
Okay. The lowest is Andy Cole with 0.45. Of this list, by the way, there are players in between those. Andy Cole with 0.45. Then it's Michael Owen with 0.46.
Oh, sorry. You meant lowest.
No, I want the highest.
Oh.
We're building to it.
Okay.
Then it's Robin van Persie with 0.52, and this is like, you got to think about this, right? Van Persie, Owen, Cole, all very good strikers. Van Persie 0.52, Thierry Henry 0.68
per game.
That's not bad, is it? Yeah, per game.
That is really good.
There's a 68% chance he'll score in that game.
Is that more than Villa
in every
last
game.
year?
Probably.
Miles more.
The bonus point, again, who's the only midfielder to appear in the top 10 of that list?
Lampard.
0.29. Yes, Jack.
Yeah.
Correct.
Oh, I don't get that bonus point, so it's pointless.
Sadly, there was no points. Was that for... Who did I ask there?
Callum.
Keno or you?
Callum.
No, I asked you.
Callum.
So no points.
Listen to him.
So to win it, Keno...
Oh, no. The pressure.
And this is we're going back to level it up from earlier on. 2 teams have been relegated from the Premier League on 4 occasions. Can you name them both?
Oh, no.
If you get the first one wrong, I cannot take a second answer, I'm afraid.
Okay, well, I'll say, is the first one West Brom?
I've not got a tiebreaker. Bloody hell. No, it's
Oh,
not
no.
West
West
Brom.
Ham's one of them.
That's not right, Jack.
No, I that's a good question. Who are they?
The correct answer is Norwich with 4 relegations, and Crystal Palace.
Wow.
Who also had 4 relegations. So I don't think we can end with a tie.
Oh, we can. Come on.
No, we can't. So I'm going to have to find... Okay, the tie-break question is... right.
You should have saved that goals one.
Yeah, I should have done. Well, I guess my question is, who has the most assists? Who has the most offsides, in the Premier League so far this season?
The most
This season?
far this season.
Oh,
Is
no.
it? There's 3 answers. Is it?
Can we both pick the same answer, and then is there a secondary?
I don't know, Jack. I've really not thought this through. Okay, what I'm going to say is actually, which Belgian has the most offsides? You can both have a guess, and you can type it to me on our chat thing.
So it's like
privately,
do we have for this?
Which Belgian? You have the next 10 seconds because we're live here, Jack.
Oh God!
Which Belgian has the most offsides in the Premier League so far?
I'm going
this
left field,
season? And it's the most out of everybody as well, by the way.
No, it's not him. Ignore that answer.
Ignore that answer.
That one.
Okay.
Please.
Problem is, I've had 3 answers there, listeners. None of them are right. So
who did you write?
Shall we get? Oh, are we gonna?
All right.
I mean,
I know how we're going to do this. The correct answer is Christian Benteke.
After one game.
Hang on.
You might think he's only played 1 game. You'd be correct. He has. So how many has he had, Jack? How many offsides has he had?
5.
Keno, higher or lower than 5?
Oh.
He's got the advantage with this. I never like
6.
the Price is Right.
Okay, the correct answer was 5. Jack wins this week's feature.
Oh my
There we go. Jack wins. Is that a 2-0 lead, Jack, in the features?
That's a 2-0 lead in the seasonal feature.
Yeah, so well done, Jack. Congratulations to you. And that brings us to the end, thank God, of this week's feature.
With quizzing, Sam Allardyce to me strikes me as more of a bingo person than a quiz person.
Yeah, but you'd have to explain it to some of the players, and some of them wouldn't get it, would they?
Have Jonathan Pearce commentating it, just not knowing what's going on.
They'd just be drawing penises on the bits of paper. It'd be a nightmare.
I mean, that sounds like my village hall's bingo night.
I mean,
sorry?
We could talk about the football, listeners, but I think actually Jack's village hall bingo night is up for discussion. No, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about some football, and a team that have had a rough start to the season, 1 point from their opening 2 games, finally got to winning ways. They had some of their best players back, and Arsenal, gentlemen, with a 3-1 win, and I dare say they're quite good when Ozil plays. Keno?
I agree. I thought they were very impressive. I mean, obviously, we spoke about this just before the game. A lot's been made of it. The kit gate issue really overshadowed.
Well, you're outraged by it, aren't you? You're sickened.
Well, obviously you had to remind me about the light and dark kit rule in the Premier League. I don't know if you want to tell the listeners, but the Arsenal kind of are forced to wear this horrible sort of combination of their third kit and some yellow socks when their red kit, which presumably would be their light kit or dark kit or something.
Well, the thing is, Watford does have red on it. It has red sleeves and red underarms, so that was probably a reason as well.
But they're yellow, Jack. They're yellow.
This is everyone needs a kit like Norwich's away kit or third kit this year. You know, like the really horrible one. This is another argument.
Just got to have a terrible kit.
Everyone should have a terrible kit that has no relation to their own club's colours or anything.
What's wrong with just shirts and skins?
Yeah,
I mean, you can't
good.
take your shirt off. So how does that work?
But
Everyone gets booked at kickoff.
Yeah. Or just bibs. I think they should have bibs. What's wrong with bibs? That's what I used to happen when I used to play. Well, if you'd have a mate who would come in like an orange jumper, but you're playing like, I don't know, like reds and greens. You just got to give him like a red bib so he can fit in.
Bib, yeah. I think that's a good idea.
Yeah,
actually.
right. Premier League players need to be wearing bibs. Although Balotelli, as we know, had a problem with a bib once. And that maybe
some
is
of
why
them might. I mean, we said some players might not be able to work out bingo.
Yeah,
bibs maybe beyond them.
Well, no, I do feel as if they've made bibs a little bit too more complex than they previously did. They used to just be pullovers. Now they've got all sorts of like stringy
Back
bits
in
to
the
put your
good old
arms in.
days.
You just put it on, but you'd get bibs that were broken on one side, wouldn't you? So if you ever went running
they were
somewhere,
that was awful.
it would flap on your back.
I forget about the flashbacks I'm having now to football. It's scarring.
Yeah,
Jack was always the one who turned up in the wrong colour.
Actually, my club when I played youth football
Bib boy, they used to call him.
played in purple, so we never had kit clashes. Should we talk about the football? Amrabat,
I
best
get the
foul of the
feeling-
season.
I get a feeling the listeners are enjoying the bib chat. But yeah, all right then. What was that? Sorry.
Amrabat, best foul of the season so far. I don't know if you saw it to give away the penalty. He just
I'm trying to
decided.
think if there's a better foul so far this year.
He just decided to run into Sanchez with his arm up and just knock him over.
Well,
I do like really overt fouls, where the player just doesn't care. They just does it.
It's the
And
foul.
it's so
It's the
obvious.
foul where like they've done it and they immediately walk to the ref rather than the ref walking to them. It's like I should now receive my punishment. Yeah, it's like they've decided. Okay, I've done this. I will now be punished. What would you like to give me? But no, getting back to the topic rather than talk about bibs and fouls. Arsenal look far better when they've got Ozil and Sanchez on the same pitch at the same time. You know.
Who knew?
Well, yeah, they're their best players. It's a shock, isn't it?
Yeah, I think things after the two signings that they've confirmed as well today, Skadran Mustafi and Lucas Perez, I feel Arsenal fans will be a little bit more happy than they were on the opening day of the season. They seem to get quite angry on the opening day of the season each year,
Yeah,
but
it's a good watch.
I must say, you know, we criticise Wenger's transfer policy quite often. I mean, most people do. But they're the two areas that Arsenal needed to strengthen. And arguably they could still do with another defender because their injury crisis is so comical. But
I wasn't going to go in the way of the transfer talk, but I do think the result is quite self-explanatory. We've not really gone too much into Arsenal and their transfer policy. I think we've been, much like everyone else, really, been waiting to see what they do. Do we think, Jack, the two signings they've made are the right signings for Arsenal? Is this what catapults them back into title contention?
I mean, I really like Mustafi as a signing. Obviously, he's made a bit of a name for himself in Spain. Obviously, in some ways, he's a bit unfortunate in the sense that he's a German centre-back who's kind of come about in an era where you've got Boateng and Hummels just nailed down every game. Lucas Perez, on the other hand, I don't know a lot about him. Obviously, he's coming for a fairly hefty fee. I think he was a midfielder until a few years ago, and now he played as a striker last year. Yeah. He's not that young, and I've looked at his goal-scoring record, and he could be the kind of player who just hits the ground running and just kind of, you know, takes to the Premier League amazingly. But just having looked at his stats, you know, looked a little bit into him,
very Aspas-esque.
It doesn't seem like the player to solve all problems. It is not the Van Persie replacement that Wenger kind of promised when Van Persie left however many years ago. Because if you can remember, when Van Persie left, Wenger was like, we'll have a replacement. Giroud was already there. They've never really signed that replacement. I mean, Sanogo.
What's interesting to me is not only have they brought in those few players, but in the last week they've sold Gnabry. It looks like he's going to go to Bayern and then get loaned out somewhere else. And Joel Campbell's gone out as well, which is strange when you think that they were two players that one Wenger was developing. Obviously, they bought Gnabry for, I think it was like 100,000 a few years ago.
Yeah, it was cheap.
I've tried to use him through the youth system.
That one is just perplexing to me.
They've essentially now, I mean, as harsh as it sounds, they've binned him off and they've said, look, we don't.
The reason they've got rid of him is because he's got 1 year left on his deal, and he pretty much said, I'm going to Bayern at the end of the year.
But it's just one of those scenarios where it's like the planning there from Arsenal isn't very good, and their solution is he 27, Lucas Perez?
Yeah,
I think it's a strange signing, and as you say, Jack, it's going to go one of two ways. Either he's going to hit the ground running and be sort of a sensation of this, I don't want to say unknown quantity that comes to the Premier League lights it up. He's worth 17 million, so he's not like a complete sort of. It's not like they've picked him on a free transfer.
Benteke was worth 32
you know what I mean?
million.
But again, for Arsenal fans, it feels like it's their third choice. It doesn't feel like they've gone after him and he was the one they wanted. It's classic Arsenal offering the 30th of August, and they've announced him now, and it's like, well, what were you playing at, Wenger, mate? Like, you should have known early enough that if you weren't going to play 50 million for Lacazette, then you weren't going to get him because Leon said that very early. It was, this is how much this player's going to cost. If you want him, come and get him. And Arsenal were like, well, we'll bid less, and we'll see what you say to that.
30.
And, Leon are obviously a club that don't need the money and don't need to sell their best player. So it's just all a bit. I think for Arsenal fans, it's frustrating. I think from the outside look, it's quite embarrassing. Like I'm embarrassed for Arsenal. Really, I think it's just an awkward situation. I do think Mustafi's a good signing, but again, the same with Perez. Why is it taking until now? Like they didn't have Koscielny on the opening day, and you dare say that if they had a more sort of consistent, regular international standard centre back, that they would have beaten Liverpool on that day, and they didn't. And it's the kind of result which Arsenal might look back at the end of the season and think we weren't prepared, and it's really cost us. It just seems strange. And as we kind of touched on before, having Ozil and Sanchez back, Jack, makes them a much, much better team. And we almost saw the real Arsenal against Watford, at least for sort of an hour anyway.
Ozil and Sanchez were at the centre of everything that was good for Arsenal in the game. I think we saw, the real Arsenal that we will see, as you say, for the rest of the year. Whether that will be good enough to go.
I just want to know what Jack thinks on. Do you think that's a plus or a positive? Do you think that's a minus or a positive, that they're going to rely on those players so much that they're going to become overly reliant on them, Jack?
I mean,
or do you
I feel like Arsenal have been overly reliant on those kind of players for a number of years now, and they've had this injury-stricken squad. The thing that surprised me most about Arsenal in this transfer window isn't necessarily the players that they've brought in, but actually some of the players they've not sold. I feel like players like Walcott are players who a lot of Arsenal fans are kind of sick of seeing in a lot of ways, and in this kind of transfer window they could have got a decent amount of money from. And as mad as it is to say Walcott could have been on his way out, he's just not been that great now, and he's not the young kid he was when he first went to Arsenal.
I was surprised.
And I'm surprised actually they've loaned out Joel Campbell, because I actually think he was better than Walcott last season. When he came on, he looked like he actually cared.
Well, you think about the chance that Walcott's been given at the Emirates, and you think about the chance that Joel Campbell's been given at the Emirates. They're not really comparable, are they? I feel like Walcott's been given far more opportunity to just prove himself, and Joel Campbell's just a strange. Like, it seems to me like Joel Campbell's just going to leave next year. Like, I don't think Joel Campbell's going to fight his way into this Arsenal team now.
I'm surprised he's never gone to another English club though on loan. It's always been abroad, which kind of surprised me so much. I don't know if that was a conscious decision by Arsenal, if that's been something with him.
That is peculiar, actually.
But I don't know. With Arsenal, I just feel like there's a lot of players who Arsenal fans wouldn't be that angry to see the back of, who are kind of still at the club. Obviously, Jack Wilshere looks like he might get a late loan out. I honestly think Arsenal are probably going to sign one or two more players tomorrow with the transfer
Wenger said no.
closing.
Wenger said it's done.
I don't. If it is, then Arsenal fans are going to be livid.
I'll be surprised if, for example, I'll be surprised if Chelsea, Liverpool, Arsenal, or City make any more signings. I think they're all done. I think
Chelsea will go in for Jimmy Rod. That's my prediction for the day. Jimmy Rod to Chelsea.
When are Arsenal fans not livid, Jack? They're always livid.
When they win for about 10 minutes.
11 years ago, they were pretty chuffed. I remember.
Yeah.
But no, I think for Arsenal fans, actually, I'm quite sympathetic. I feel bad for them. Because I think they are. I think while we kind of said on the opening weekend that some of them are a bit daft, but it must be frustrating. Must be incredibly frustrating to watch from an outsider point of view. I predicted
it in the preview show for Arsenal that they got their business done early and they just wouldn't sign anyone else this window. Not been that far off, really.
Well, now they've panicked a little bit and bought two players.
I want them to do an last minute kind of signing where they just go 50 million, just throw it.
But it'll be the wrong player. Like, they will do it, but it'll be like they'll just sign another sort of creative player.
Johnny Evans.
Like you said, Jimmy Rod to Chelsea. Imagine if Arsenal just bought him. It'd be like, he's a great player, but what are you doing? Like, he's not the right player. I mean, we'll talk. As I said, we might do a transfer episode sort of next week, so we might talk about what business teams have done later on. Shall we move on? I mean, it's a good win. Watford disappointed for Watford,
Pereira scored for Watford. New signing. Obviously, good to see him get a goal on his Premier League debut. I don't think this is the kind of game that's going to define Watford's season. And,
no. You would hope not anyway.
They've not
3-0 on half time is not good.
I don't know what Watford's upcoming fixtures are like, but they've got to start getting something from somewhere. And I know a lot of Watford fans said they were worried actually at the start of the year when we kind of said maybe they'll be okay this year. So
I think part of the problem. This is a bit of a kind of ingrained problem with the way that the Pozzos do conduct their business, is that it may take a while for the Watford players to get used to the methods that Mazzari brings, because he did have a very particular style. Obviously, there's the way that he likes to talk about Conte copying his style, and it will be different to Sanchez Flores, slightly probably more complex in the way that he sets the team out, and Watford may not have that time and the players to adjust, to make that adjustment. And when the Pozzos insist on, being very fast and loose with the way that they treat their managers, and very ready to change if they need to be, that is one of the risks that you're running. And whether that may come back to bite them this season, if they don't hit the ground running and they're facing a bit of a points deficit come Christmas time, it may look to be a mistake, because although I think Mazzari personally is a good enough manager to keep Watford in the league, he may not have enough time if they don't take to what he wants quick enough.
But it's interesting what the board at Watford want, because staying in the league surely isn't their goal this year. It's higher than that, because they've sacked a manager that got them that.
I think they sacked him for kind of non-footballing reasons in a lot of ways, in terms of the way he was trying to look for alternative jobs and kind of flaunting himself around a little bit, looking for other clubs.
And they did tail off a lot towards the back end of last season.
With Watford's fixtures, they've got West Ham away, then Manchester United at home, and then their next run of games is Burnley away, Bournemouth at home, Middlesbrough away, Swansea away, and Hull at home. They are five games where you have to be aiming for 10 points.
We'll learn a lot more about them.
Well, the problem for Watford is they could go into those games that they have to win in quite dreadful form.
Yeah.
Which I think would be the scary thing. They're playing two sides that are unbeaten. Did you say Chelsea and City, did you say? Or United?
United and West Ham. But
okay.
West Ham away, obviously West Ham have got a bit of a point to prove.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, it's not easy for Watford, and as you say, in a few weeks' time we'll know plenty more about them. Should we move on to the champions? I'd like saying that. I'm going to say it every week. Should we move on to the champions?
It sends tingles down my spine.
I know, I still can't believe it.
They got the job done relatively early. A Leroy Fer goal in the 80th minute gave them a little bit of a scare, but Jamie Vardy's on the board, people, with his arm bandage, which he still has. I mean, I think we spoke about that last week. We still got it. He gets a goal, and Wes Morgan. I mean, two players that obviously so pivotal last year. Get Leicester back to winning ways, and it puts Swansea in a bit of a tricky situation. One win from their first three.
If I was a Swansea fan this year, I would be worried. Because
really?
Because I feel, having lost the spine of the team that they have, in Williams and Ayew and Gomez as well, I feel it's all become a little bit stale and a little bit sort of they're drifting, it seems, under Guidolin, and obviously not how they haven't had a win this season, have they? As you just said, so. Again, they could be a team like Watford that, with that bad run of form to start with, it's often difficult to recover if other teams around them are picking up points.
I think Swansea need a big deadline day signing.
They do more than arguably any team, I think.
Yeah. I don't necessarily think, though. I will say this for Swansea: I don't necessarily think they're relegation fodder. I do think they've got a little bit more than that, but I do think, and I worry for them a little bit, that beyond that point, what's kind of next? I don't see a lot of growth in that Swansea team right now, which I think will be a concern for
Leroy Fer's looked very good for them, though. Of course, he joined in the summer. He's got 2 goals already.
Yeah,
and I feel like
it's interesting.
Sigurdsson always looks a little bit frustrated, I feel like, in these bigger games for Swansea, because he feels you can tell that he is kind of just trying his all, and he just can't haul the team anywhere. And obviously it's always difficult in these kind of games. I feel like for them, this is a game actually kind of away against Leicester. You go into it not really with any real expectations. I feel like they'll be a little bit disappointed with the performance, Swansea. I actually saw the first kind of 30-odd minutes of this game. I ended up watching it live, and Swansea just weren't going forward and just looked... They didn't look like they really wanted to punish Leicester or put them under any pressure. It was actually Leicester kind of commanding the game, as I guess you'd expect champions to be. But it felt like Swansea were perhaps showing a little bit too much respect, just giving Leicester a bit too much space on the ball and not really giving them anything to think about defensively.
Yeah.
What's going to be big for Swansea is that Borja Baston from Atletico Madrid hasn't played
their
for
marquee
them yet.
signing.
He hasn't played yet. I think he was 15 million or something like that. He hasn't played yet. They need to get him in and get him playing. He got 18 in La Liga last year, which is for Eibar not too bad, is it? He's had a lot of loan spells.
I heard some stat on that today. I think it was like Llorente, who of course is their other new signing for goals. He scored more than half of his goals in La Liga from headers. So you are looking at kind of the wider men, which actually Swansea don't necessarily have terrible wide men, but they've got to change their
It's not a style
service.
that is characterised of that.
Yeah, well, that's the other thing. Swansea are a weird team because when Rodgers was in charge, they were defined as having this passing style that was quite unique for a team of their size, and they were quite plucky about it. And obviously, that was something that Monk kind of attempted to kind of continue on in a lot of ways, but it stopped.
Well,
working.
I think it went a bit under Laudrup. I think that he moved them on a little bit.
He made them more dynamic though, Laudrup. I felt like he made them a little bit more explosive.
I feel like he continued the trend though. Whereas I look at this Swansea side now, I don't feel like they have the same defined style that they once had, and I think it's going to be interesting to see how they can, adapt. And obviously they've got to change something. And I mean, they've got their record transfer, as you said, to come back. Llorente, they need him to start scoring goals because that's what he's been brought in to do, and he's not done it yet.
I think Swansea are. I mean, I can think of a few teams. West Brom are the first team that springs to mind. That are kind of. They are the teams this year. I mean, we've seen it with other teams in the past where they're sort of in that mid-table band, and they. It's kind of like you summed it up in sort of with your what's next comment, Ben. I think that it's difficult for a team like that, who obviously don't have the resources to crack the top 6, say, or to really push on for European football, to come up with a meaningful kind of goal. Obviously, Southampton have done that to an extent since they kind of with their regenerations, but it's difficult for a team like Swansea to really have a purpose outside of
it's like
staying in the league.
They're going to become the next Stoke, aren't they?
Stoke you don't want that label.
Ninth every year. You don't want that label. Well, Stoke of now is not so bad. For Stoke of before. Speaking of transfers, I want to go on to Leicester quickly. Are we surprised Leicester haven't done more? I'm shocked.
Well, there's
actually.
talk of £100 million swoop, isn't there, tomorrow? I can't remember who the players are. Yeah, I will attempt to find the players they've been linked with, but the word on the street is Leicester are about to go mental and just drop some big ones.
Adrian Silva and Slimani.
Slimani's the one.
I talked about for like a combined 50. I'm just surprised at this stage. Again, I mean, they've won the league, but they've not done that much. Mendy's come in, Musa's come in.
I like to believe that Ranieri's gone to Mahrez and done the FM chat that you can do with a player. It's like, have you got any players you recommend? And he's gone international partner, goal scorer, Islam Slimani. Get him in.
Well, the reason I'm surprised is they've not really spent that much. Like because they've sold Kante, and Richie Delat's left. Karamek, is left as well. They've not really done that much for a team that's won the league.
I think that's a reaction to the fairly lukewarm start that they've had. I think had they maybe won the games that they played against, or at least done a little bit better. As you say, it's only their first win now, and we're almost out of August. I don't think that's kind of this rumours of this spending would have happened. I think it's like I say, it's a reaction to their fairly bad start, and I think they tried initially, and I mean it was the logical thing not to, although you'd won the league and you've got this money and you're in the Champions League, to kind of go on a blowout of players that could potentially be unsustainable in the long term. They've tried to keep the squad together to make a few sort of choice additions when they've realised that maybe that, I mean, obviously it'd be almost impossible to replicate the season that they had last year, but on this kind of evidence in the short term that maybe the owners have seen, decided actually, we could do with injecting a little bit of extra firepower and sort of dynamism in here with these signings.
They've redecorated when I thought they'd build an extension. That's what it feels like.
And then they've realised that the redecoration isn't quite as sort of
it's good.
Fantastic as they hoped.
The living room looks great, but they want to. They've got some new kids.
So they're building a conservatory anyway.
So they've built a conservatory, which is again, it's nice. Like it's being sponsored by Musa. But they still need, like, the swimming pool could be there. I'm thinking a bar. I'm thinking a barbecue, Jack.
Do you reckon at kind of 10 p.m. tomorrow they're going to get 60-minute makeover in to, like, quickly buy players for 60 minutes? Right, get in, team.
You just see Damien Comoli turn up in a van with his like bevy of scouts, just loving it.
I've got this image of just them all opening up FM on a laptop and looking through the players. Ranieri's kind of marching up and down, looking at all the different players.
Like Time Commanders.
Yes.
Link. Thank you. But no,
more on that later.
I think that there isn't any more. Don't stay tuned for that. Leicester's squad still looks a little bit average to me, and it's the title-winning squad, but it's still.
The issues with Leicester is
still a bit average.
I think at the start of the season you kind of looked at their transfers and you were like, smart transfers, but you expect them to do more sooner.
Yeah, and it must be hard for them to sign players though, because like they're not a consistent. So they are the underdog story, aren't they? They're not this consistent.
Well, that's the issue that they kind of had with Kante. Is I think Kante kind of looked at the Leicester and that was a flash in the pan. It was fun while it lasted, but I want consistency and security.
That's why I think we all thought that Mahrez would have been gone by now. But
he could still go.
No.
Goes to Arsenal. The Arsenal fans are happy.
He signed a new contract. I don't think.
There might be a release clause in it. We don't know. I mean, Arsene Wenger might bid £1 over it.
Yeah, it's unlikely. Let's talk about the new, well, sort of the returning almost, isn't it? The big three, Chelsea, Manchester United and Manchester City. We're going to talk about these three teams in the same section, really. Who have we been most impressed by? I think we'll go to sort of the three of us.
Well, we should talk about the results. All
right, we'll talk about the results first. Obviously, Manchester City with a very good first half performance, Keno, and then a lacklustre second half.
Definitely a game of two halves. I must admit that the first 45 minutes of City on the weekend was probably the best half I've seen all season from any
Barcelona 2009. I felt it.
It was very that, and it was the speed with which they started and the way that the willingness that they had, and it's incredible that this has sort of got over to the players so quickly. Because I mean, I've said it earlier in this podcast. Often it takes time for managers' methods for players to adapt to those methods. But the way in which they've absorbed Guardiola's sort of philosophy so quickly and replicating on the pitch in such an impressive manner was fantastic to watch. And there was definitely a touch of the Barcelonas around that period. The way that they were happy to keep the ball on the edge of the West Ham box and then look for those kind of runners. It wasn't so much a long ball or but the kind of the little dink over the top for a runner, say a Sterling, who was fantastic, and we'll probably talk about him again in a bit. To look for one of those runners and to just break the defensive kind of wall so easily. And they've got the players also in that team to be dynamic on the break as well, obviously with De Bruyne and Aguero and Sterling. So that was fantastic to see. But they did slow down a bit in the second half, and I was interested by what you guys thought about that, having seen it. That's one of the reasons maybe why I think with Champions League, it may be a little more tough for City to win the league this year. I don't know what you think about that, but they did tire.
I don't think it was necessarily them tiring. Actually, I think it was more a conscious decision just to slow it down a little bit. It was an intensity.
You thought it was a tactical thing?
Well, yeah, I think I'm not going to say tactical, but I think it was a case of that intensity that they came out with in the first half was going to be very difficult to maintain for 90 minutes.
It came very close for West Ham to get back into the game, though. I mean, at one point when it was 2-1,
I feel like when Antonio scored, not for the first time this season from the back post, there was a little bit of panic that kind of set in, and there was kind of a case of, we are in a game now. I do feel like City have been guilty of that. Certainly last season, where they just kind of get a few goals ahead and just. There's a difference between playing cockily and kind of arrogantly when you're winning, and kind of just not trying because you think you've done enough. And do you
feel like they can do that though under Guardiola a bit more so than under Pellegrini?
I don't think Guardiola
the style in which they play.
I don't think Guardiola will let them. Actually, I feel like he'll look at this as a case example of something that they have to avoid this season because it's a very easy way to lose points.
It's something that Guardiola. I mean, our foreign managers often talk about how competitive the Premier League is, and I don't want to blow the sort of the best league in the world or anything like that. But
it is.
One thing that managers often remark about the Premier League is the sort of never say die attitude of any team that you're playing, and there are probably times where if a Bayern Munich or a Barcelona were 2-0 up in the 70th minute against a team that was not fancied to win, that I think both sides would kind of accept the result a little bit, and not in a sort of nefarious way, but just in a way that kind of probably doesn't happen here. I think that's something that Guardiola probably expected, and as Jack said, it's something that he'll try and stamp out. The point I wanted to quickly make was it was obviously John Stones had to go off. I think he had an eye problem or something like that.
You look quite distressed by it as well.
Well, it's kind of quite a distressing thing.
I would be though. If someone poked me in the eye, I'd be thinking, right, well, I can't see.
It really hurts.
By accident, not intentionally.
And incredibly, you can't mess about with that kind of thing. But it was quite surprising to see how much they missed him as soon as he went off. Literally, but as soon as Stones left the field, West Ham started to come back into it, and they lost a little bit of that control that I think he gives to them, where they play out from the back, and the impact that he's had on that team in such a short time was quite impressive and surprising.
Can I bring up two things just real quickly? Firstly, David Silva, I've questioned you last year. I thought you were too slow to be the heartbeat of a midfield.
If you're listening, David, mate, if you're listening,
I have to apologise to him because he was outstanding in this game, and I think he has a place in Guardiola's team. That's something I wasn't actually sure necessarily how often he'd play, particularly with the additions they'd made in kind of the attacking midfielder area. The other point I want to make is Aguero with the elbow.
Oh, yes, we should talk about the elbow.
That was a little bit naughty. And he is going to get retrospective action, I do believe.
Yeah, he's been charged. I think at the speed in which we see it, it's like slow down is what I mean. When it's in slow mo, it looks way worse than it is. I think what's happened is Aguero's felt something on his back. I think like a hand goes towards Aguero. Aguero gives it a bit back, and you've got to think, I know this sounds really stupid, right? I don't know how aware Aguero is of where the face of the player is, but if he swings his arm back, like it must happen all the time and there's just no contact. But when there's contact made, it's a massive deal.
He's quite small as well, isn't he? I don't think he'd hit many heads.
I can only assume he does, like, as a striker, I can only assume they do that movement quite a lot.
He has got a little bit of a record, Aguero, though, for doing a few like naughty little things like that.
He was what he was. I don't think he is anymore. I think that kind of their relationship. I mean, I don't want to talk about Sergio Aguero's relationship, but I think it's kind of. I think they want to break. He obviously was very close to Diego Maradona at one point, Jack. So Sergio Aguero will have a little nasty streak in him, based on the influence of Diego. But I don't necessarily think it was massively intentional. Is it a bit naughty? Does it deserve a 3-match ban? Maybe. I think maybe 1 or 2. Like, but the point was made that if it's Costa. I don't like this, actually, that if it's Diego Costa, everyone's up in arms about it. Well, yes, because Diego Costa's got a track record of being a horrible bastard.
The reason he got free, though, is because it just falls under violent conduct, and that is just the punishment.
Yeah, well, no, I know. As far as the FA are concerned, it's a blanket ban, essentially.
And obviously the most important game of that 3-game ban is the Manchester derby, which he will miss, which is crucial for City.
It's a good link, Manchester United are 1-0 win over Hull. Very disappointing for Hull. You've got to say.
Hull, one of the funnest games, like, defensively, I've watched. I love it when you have a team who are just getting like shots fired at them and they're just throwing everyone at them. I thought Curtis Davies, there was 2 of him. There were 2 of him throwing himself at the ball. That's how many times he blocked it. It was ridiculous.
Curtis Davies was amazing. I've got a stat for you guys. Hull have conceded the most shots, obviously, against them of any Premier League team, 70, and have only conceded 2. So that goes to show how
60 of them. No.
Well, yeah, it does go to show how heroic their defence and goalkeeper have been so far, and they definitely did it. Probably 40 of them were in that game, but Curtis Davies was. I mean, having had experience with Davies, he played for my team in the past, an immensely frustrating player because he has. I mean, it's obviously it's probably past that point now, but he did have all the attributes to be a fantastic centre half. When he was a bit younger, he had the pace as well to really bail himself out, and a good defender alongside that. And his career hasn't kind of panned out the way it could have done at one point, but he showed all of his talent on Saturday evening.
Yeah. Do you think is he on the fringes of a call-up? I don't know.
Well, that was the next point I was going to get to. What do you think?
Well, Jagielka's been called up. Jagielka probably isn't going to start that much for Everton.
Yeah.
With more, with Funes Mori and William coming in, or Williams. It just seems mental to me that. I mean, it'll be interesting to see, obviously, how the season goes on because we are so early on. But it's going to be hard to justify Jagielka unless he can really kind of force himself in ahead of Funes Mori in the Everton side.
Especially if Davis is playing every week, I don't see that much of a difference between those two as players, really, and what they would bring to the England team. So it is, it's a bit funny one. I think we'll see a lot more of the same from Big Sam.
Rashford, of course, also left out the side, got the winner.
I'm cool with that, by the way. I'm cool with him being left out. I don't want to make this like an England chat, but I think
we'll
that's
do
fine.
That maybe later.
All right, we'll do it. We'll do it in 20. We'll do it in 15 minutes and make it last half an hour. No, I don't think. I don't think Manchester United look as good as everyone says they do yet. I think if you go against Hull and get a 92-minute winner, you're not playing brilliantly. And as I said last week, Keenan, you shot me down. I think United seem relatively efficient at the moment. They're doing just enough, which I think for City and Chelsea is probably a bit of a worry because they're not.
I mean, I agree in the sense that I do think they're being efficient, but there was a touch, and maybe it's a kind of a bit of a perception thing, the way that they played, and obviously now that they have Jose Mourinho, there was a touch of the sort of Ferguson's United about that result, and the way that they managed to get the winner, when it almost looked like they wouldn't have done, and maybe if Louis van Gaal's Man United did that last season, everyone would have said, oh, why couldn't you have stuck a few more past him about their boring football. They did move the ball quite slowly during the game, but the way in which they were able to get that result, still 3 points, still top of the league, there was almost an ominous sense from watching that game, and then obviously the result, that we're returning to a kind of...
I was going to say, I've not had that for a while, that ominous sense of this is happening, isn't it? And I don't know no one's going to stop this. Even Hull suddenly thought, hang on a minute, is that Mourinho or is that Fergie? Oh no, it was Rashford.
It really did feel like that, and it's the first time that you felt that when watching United, obviously since Ferguson's left. So, it's like I say, ominous.
I did think Hull looked a little bit tired, and obviously they're fortunate in the sense it's the international break now. They've only
14 players, Jack.
Well, they've only used 3 subs in their 6 Premier. They've used 3 subs in their 3 Premier League games.
Yeah.
Like they're not rotating.
Maloney's done it twice as well.
And obviously, Rooney cut in. I think it was El Mohammadi actually at right back, looked pretty tired. It was un-Rooney-esque. I felt the assist. It's not so.
Well, it was because El Mohammadi looked dead. He looked absolutely spent. That was the only way that Rooney could have got around him.
I mean, looked as if he'd played extra time, and he hadn't played extra time.
We talked about teams that need big deadline days. Well, Hull, let's not beat around the bush. If they don't sign players on deadline day, they will be relegated. It's that simple. Because there's no way that they can get through the season with 14 players.
It doesn't matter how good your start is, Hull. Like, can I just say, by the way, on Hull, still 6 points.
True. I'll give it to you.
Still time.
Thank you. Anyway, no one tweeted me this week, interestingly enough.
We've talked about 60-minute makeover for Leicester. I think Hull need DIY SOS in to help them to revamp the squad in the time they've got.
Work that into the name of the podcast this week, Jack.
Yeah,
There's a distinct...
It's a challenge for you there, mate.
I'll try.
Mkhitaryan looked good. Came on. First time we've really seen him do anything.
Best player in the Bundesliga last year.
Yeah, you'd expect he'll do something. But interesting that he came on for Martial as well, who I feel a bit sorry for Martial. I don't know why. I just do. I don't think it's fair that he's been brought in and now he's sort of been used on the left. He's a striker, isn't he?
No, Sturridge feels.
Is he though? I'm not sure if he is a number 9.
I think but when I've seen him play up front, I think he looks so sharp and so clinical that maybe not always clinical, but he just looks intelligent. He plays that role intelligently, and the problem is there are a few strikers in the world that play it more intelligently than him. One of them is Zlatan Ibrahimovic. But I do feel a bit for him on that left hand side. I can't imagine that's where he wants to play though. I was just being honest, I can't imagine that's where he wants to be.
A lot of sympathy for a Man United player.
I don't know. I don't think he necessarily hates it. I think he's got a bit of the Henri about him when he's out on that left hand side cutting in.
I think that's a bit of a lazy comparison.
I don't think
French,
it's
young,
lazy.
left-sided. Yeah.
No, well the thing is, he has played out on the left prior to moving to United. It's not like a new position to him. So
yeah, but not a lot though. He hadn't played. It was documented pretty heavily. He hadn't played that much before United. It wasn't like they signed a left winger.
Oh, of course.
They signed a player. They just started developing French.
I don't feel like he'll feel that aggrieved because I feel like he's the kind of player who gets on and does a job for the team. Unlike one Daniel Sturridge who minds.
I'm sure he's happy to be playing. Chelsea, quickly, Eden Hazard's back, people. Talking about players that are back in form. Not only a Manchester United back, but Eden Hazard looks like he wants to do football again, everyone, which is nice.
Did Mourinho lock him up at the start of last season and then let him out for like the last little bit? Because it was like a different player throughout last season, and this season he looks so confident.
He looks... I mean, the stat is, isn't it, that he's scored 6 goals in the last 8 Premier League matches, having scored 6 in the last 44 before that, so which isn't as good. If he starts ticking, Chelsea, again, another team that looked like sort of efficiently good. Every team this weekend, even Manchester United and Hull, they dominated the games. And I think it's to be said, they all had over 20 shots. They all looked like teams that are title contenders. And it's something that we didn't see last year. So it's quite refreshing, actually, to see it this year, to see the teams put a bit more sort of emphasis on actually winning a title, not just gifting it to another team.
I do feel like in the Premier League, you can pick out with a lot of teams like one player that really makes them tick, that makes the difference. I feel like for Arsenal, you can make a case for Ozil or Sanchez. At City, you've got Aguero.
That's 2 players, Jack, but yeah.
I mean at least one. And I think for Chelsea,
I know what you meant.
I feel like for Chelsea, Eden Hazard is that man, and I think that was actually one of their big problems last year, was they lacked that catalyst. He's come back in his first goal against Burnley. It's a merciless goal, but it's a goal of a player who is just he just has so much self-belief in himself to take on and then just confident again. It. And I'm really excited to see what he can do, because actually you look across that Chelsea side, it's an incredible team, but he is the standout player for them in a lot of ways. And I feel like...
I mean, he can be. I don't think he is, but he certainly can be. I don't necessarily think he is the standout player.
He has to be if they want to kick on. I think he has to be the man to step up to the plate, because I don't feel like they have players quite like him in their midfield, the kind of players who can just grab the ball and run with it and really terrify defences.
I think at the end of this season, we'll understand just how bad he was last year, though. I think at this stage people have almost forgotten how good Eden Hazard is. On his day,
the year before last.
Yeah.
He'll get it again this year.
But the second half of that season, you might remember, Chelsea kind of went off they changed from being this like expansive, exuberant attacking side and became this more defensively solid side. So actually, for about 18 months, we haven't seen the best of Eden Hazard, apart from that goal against Tottenham last season. So it's nice to see. Like you want to see the perceived best players be the best players, and I think although he's a Chelsea player, we all want to see him do relatively well. Should we talk about the two real title contenders? I mean, we've talked about the pretenders. Should we talk about the contenders?
I assume that's Spurs, Liverpool. Yeah. I was wondering where you were going. I was looking through the list thinking, that can't be Southampton, Sunderland, can it?
It could be. You never know. No, Liverpool went away to Tottenham, and it was. I think these games are often when you see two managers that obviously have a system, have a rhythm. It's very fascinating to watch two sides. Just the tactical aspect of it, I find fascinating, and. Tottenham, I've got to say, I'll speak well about Liverpool for a brief time, people. Sorry about this. Tottenham looked a little bit unsure of what to do with Liverpool, which is nice. You don't see that every day. From
a neutral perspective, I think Liverpool fans should be far happier with their performance of their team than Spurs fans would be. There are a number of players in that Spurs side in the early game on Saturday that looked tired, even in the first. And I mean, a lot's been made of Harry Kane and his physical condition, and the fact that he hasn't had a proper break for almost 2.5 years now from football. But it wasn't just Kane; it was Dele Alli and Christian Eriksen who also looked a little bit off the pace. And whether they'll play themselves into form, remains to be seen. And Spurs did start slowly last season, it should be said, and they're still unbeaten. But comparing the two teams on Saturday, I thought, but for a few centimetres, obviously Mane's goal was very, very marginally offside. You could make a case for it not being offside even.
I'd say just.
But for a few centimetres, it would be a great win for Liverpool. And they definitely looked the better side overall. There were periods where, and I think this will always happen with Klopp's Liverpool, where they looked quite ropey. I thought Matip had a good game in his debut. Not fantastic, but good, and that's promising going forward. But all in all, Liverpool looked like they're still making progress under Klopp.
I think a lot can be said for what both managers said afterwards. Klopp was essentially saying it's a very good away point against Tottenham and a very good performance, and you almost felt like he thought his team should have won it and had done enough to win it. Whereas Pochettino came out and said, "A draw is a fair result." And I think if you feel like you should have won the game, you will not say that.
Expectation management.
You wouldn't. If you think you should have won the game, you would never say a draw is a fair result. If you think you've been outdone just a little bit, you'll be like, "Yeah, a draw is probably fair," which I think it's quite nice in many ways. He's not being honest, but you can kind of see through what he means, which I always quite like. I think statistically it was a very even game. I think Liverpool looked the brighter. Are you worried about Kane, Jack? Because he doesn't score in August. It's a problem.
Never scored in August.
He's in my fantasy football team, and I'm sat looking at him thinking, Harry, come here. I need you to perform. Please don't screw up. And then Aguero elbows someone, and I'm thinking, well, Sergio, now I have to take you out the team because you could be out for 3 games.
Do you have them all on speed dial, Jack?
Yeah.
I actually have them all on Skype, so I just messaged them at any hour of the day.
He used to have David Silva, but after what he said last season, not anymore.
I still tweet him occasionally, he never replies. But no, Harry Kane is the player that actually I think will define Tottenham's season if he can get going. I think if he doesn't get going, Tottenham are really going to struggle. I feel like they've lacked a spark in a lot of ways. Like, with their side, they've got a lot of players capable of really kind of stepping up and going off and just making something out of nothing. And in these opening 3 games, worryingly perhaps, there's just been a distinct lack of that in a lot of ways. I feel like obviously Kane is the player who's going to make a big difference for them this year. I think I said they were going to finish 7th this year in the previews, and someone shouted at me. I'm worried for them, and I feel like they might have to go into someone.
Jack?
Someone in the YouTube comment section, man. It was horrible. It was a bloodbath.
Who shouted at you?
Shall we get them?
At the end of the season when they finish 2nd and I look like a mug, why not? But no, I feel like Spurs are actually a team who have got to go in the transfer window with a day left. And I think there might be a little bit of an air of panic to it. But if I'm a Spurs fan, I'm looking at the game so far thinking, not seeing anything to get me too excited this year.
Do you think Spurs would have made a bigger signing? I know they've bought Janssen in. I know they've bought Wanyama. But do you think they'd bring in
this is a
else?
transfer window when more than half the Premier League sides have beaten their record transfer kind of fee paid. And there's a few teams that you look at as the teams you might have been expecting to be the teams to kind of smash their transfer record and bring in a big player who haven't really seized upon the opportunities and kind of the momentum of last season. I feel like West Ham are a little bit guilty of that. Of course, they did spend 30 million on AU, but I still feel like that's a little bit of a weird transfer. And then I kind of look at Leicester and Tottenham as perhaps the two biggest examples of that, where you just think there isn't a signing that's kind of very marquee and gets, you're super excited. It's neither of those teams have signed a player who is immediately going to be on the back of every fan's shirt. And I think given where they've kind of positioned themselves last year, you wanted to see that as a fan of them.
Yeah, but you could also take their lead position. I know Spurs fell off right at the end, but they were the best two teams of last season. And, you can make a case for those teams and the managers thinking, we want to build on this and not sort of upset the apple cart by bringing in a big player. I think it could be very easy to jump on the kind of the marquee signing bandwagon in this crazy summer that we've had.
The momentum, and I don't necessarily done that.
But I think it's through making transfers like Wanyama, where you strengthen in key areas, that you do gradually improve. And obviously Spurs had the youngest team on average last year in the Premier League, and so they're only going to get better. The issue is, and this is where I do agree with you, is that having seen the performances now and the relative, like I say, we've mentioned it, it's the tiredness, the fatigue, the lacking of maybe sort of that extra spark in players like Kane and Ali, whether Levy and Pochettino see fit to maybe make a signing that might maybe give one of them or two of them a kick up the arse.
Well, I was going to say, it might just take one player, just one creative player, maybe someone that can play up front and behind. Do you know who they should have signed? They should have signed Lucas Perez. I heard he was available for
I just want Jimmy Rod
million.
in the Premier League. Fan favourite, for the fans' favourite.
An old school, well, not old school, but a long-standing for the fans.
Who was this? Sorry,
Jimmy Rod,
the man.
He's what, to Tottenham?
I just want him in the Premier League anywhere.
Out your mind. Right, let's talk about final games to talk about before we carry on. Was there arguably game of the weekend, gentlemen? It was West Brom Middlesbrough. Did you watch it?
Super Sunday, Ben.
My
Nissan
God,
Super Sunday.
It was, and sorry for being explicit. It was the
Japanese cars are available.
It was the. I don't know if it was a shit game. It was just boring. It was a nice boring game of football. I mean, I went in thinking, do you know what? I'll forgo what I think about this game and I'll watch it with an open mind. About 43 minutes in, I thought, this is a waste of time. And I watched the whole game as well, thinking, it gets to sort of the last 10 minutes, you're thinking, I've 80 minutes of this. I deserve something at this point.
I feel like at 80 minutes in that kind of game, it's like I really should be turning it off. But I've sat around for so long. If there's a goal now, I've wasted 80 minutes.
It'll be because I've not watched.
Can I make a shocking confession about this game? I watched the first 5 minutes and then decided I'd had enough and I knew how the game was going to go. I didn't want to get to the situation where after 80 minutes I felt I had to watch the last 10.
It's not very. I mean, talking about it, West Brom apparently going to make a lot of moves. They might be one of the biggest.
Chadley already in.
That's a fantastic signing.
I've criticised West Brom. I've said they're boring. You're winning me back. I might follow you back on Twitter soon.
The 48 hours before the deadline closes, it looks as if West Brom are going to be the busiest team on the final day, which I think they need to be.
Might go.
Well, ins and outs.
He's always in car parks on deadline day, though. Who knows?
He's got his phone on speed dial.
I will say about this game. Obviously, it was very dull. However, Borough are still unbeaten, and just before the break, to finish off their August, this is almost the dream game for Borough. And if you want to consolidate, 2 wins and a draw, 5 points, end of August, that would have been, I think every Borough fan would have taken that if you'd have given it them before the start of the season. Yeah. And this game was sort of almost a perfect one because you know how West Brom are going to be, they're not going to threaten that much and just be fairly solid. So for Borough to get that result and to continue with their momentum into the break, I think was a pretty good result for them. Not so much for Pulis, and I will finish by saying, I know quite a lot of West Brom fans sort of around here, and to a man, they are pretty sick, and I would say it's fairly representative of the West Brom fan base that they are sick to death of Pulis and the way that he plays, and I think West Brom, like Swansea, maybe kind of Southampton, Sunderland, etc., fall into that same bracket, and Stoke. They want a bit more. And if your team was playing good football, maybe you could excuse yourself finishing sort of mid-table stability. But Albion fans aren't getting that under Pulis.
Yeah. I think, but it must be a problem though that the fact that they've got 4 points from 3 games and they're just 10th. It's like we hate this.
I feel like Ben, you mentioned this game out of satire, and we're now having a serious conversation about one of the worst games of the week.
Well, I think
sorry about everyone. Sorry, listeners.
There's a conversation to be had because I think Pulis might be the first manager to go because West Brom have new. I'm going to say it. I'm going to put it out there.
But the points. It's a points game. If they're in the Premier League status, that's what chairman of the Premier League seem to care most about.
They have new owners coming in West Brom, and I feel they might want to stamp their authority on it.
And Timmy Sherwood is available, people. So before he's gone,
I tell you, that would be wonderful. I would enjoy that.
You'd enjoy their match to European football. Now, from one international calibre manager in Tim Sherwood to another, Sam Allardyce has picked his first England squad.
Brilliant.
We're not going to talk about the other games in the Premier League. Of course, in future weeks, we will cover every team. Southampton fans, don't worry, we'll get to you.
West Ham and Everton fans complained, so Everton soon.
Wayne Rooney has announced that he will be retiring, as well as being announced he will remain as captain. That's what Big Sam said. And Allardyce has announced his squad. Generally what we would expect. A few changes, though. No Ross Barkley. Antonio's coming, as has Theo Walcott. 2 players that obviously didn't make it to the Euros, and there was chat that they maybe could have done.
I don't get the Walcott one. Don't get it.
I don't get the Walcott. I agree. In tandem with the Barkley one, I don't understand that choice because I feel Barkley, while not pulling up trees last season, had a pretty solid year with Lukaku. I feel his form's quite closely tied to Lukaku's in the way that, if Lukaku's scoring lots of goals, it's likely that Barkley's going to be picking up a lot of assists.
Do you think then, Keno, that Roberto Martinez, although Ross Barkley has represented England, will be looking into the possibility of getting him to Anderlecht, having him spend a massive amount of time
with
there,
Thierry,
and maybe change nationalities with Ross Barkley? Could we see a De Bruyne, Hazard, Barkley behind Lukaku?
If there's any man who could do that, it would be Thierry Henry. Obviously, Martinez's new right-hand man in the Belgium setup.
Yeah, but Thierry Henry is the kind of man that you'd say, Thierry, Ross Barkley's not Belgian. What? He's not Belgium. Okay, and then he just starts him. I feel like Thierry Henry is so sort of.
Can we talk about Belgium? With the Thierry Henry thing, Martinez reminds me of me when I was in science class at school, and I sucked at science. And whenever there was a group project, you went and got the brainiest person in class who you thought would be quite good. I feel like that's what Martinez has done with Henry. He's gone, you're available.
Fair enough.
You're quite
and
good.
He's got the highest goals per game ratio in Premier
League. I like to believe he just gives a ball to Henry and pushes him in the direction of Lukaku and goes like, teach him. Kind of. England. Antonio.
Maybe. Well, I was going to run you through the team then. So it's Fraser Forster, Joe Hart, Tom Heaton. Of course, Jack Butland's still out injured. Shea Given is feeling the real force of that.
Should we just say Joe Hart of Torino?
Well, Joe Hart has moved to Torino on loan. It's pretty much official when you see him looking out of a hotel window with a Torino scarf. I'm going to give him that. I'm going to say it's probably happened. Do we think it matters that he's in Torino?
Little bit.
Well, he's at Torino.
I think actually I think he's blessed.
We've had this chat. Me and Keane have had this chat off air.
I think he's blessed in the sense, actually, I think this is one of the weakest times for English goalkeepers in the last decade.
Well, at least while Butland's injured,
yeah,
I think he's got a bit of.
I mean, when you look at the current squad, I feel like in Forster and Heaton. Sorry, I know Butland's currently out. I mean, if you look at it now, I don't feel like there's much competition for Hart, and that going into this, his kind of spot in the squad is nailed down, which I think is actually a very rare situation. I feel like in most England squads, given his start to the season, given how perhaps he performed in the summer with the new manager coming in, having seen the lack of faith that Guardiola's shown, there would be a little bit more, I guess, emphasis on the potential to drop him, whereas I don't feel like that's been much of a conversation with this current squad.
We're under the assumption, though, that Allardyce will start Hearts against Slovenia.
I mean, he won't now, and I'll look like a mug.
I think he will, though. I think he definitely will. So Forster, Hart and Heaton. Defenders Cahill, Klein, Jagielka, Danny Rose, Luke Shaw, Chris Smalling, John Stones and Kyle Walker. Probably what we expected. Good to see Luke Shaw back.
Surprised at Jagielka getting a call-up. I think he's been the beneficiary.
Who would you have put in instead?
Well, Stones has obviously got that little injury. Well, Stones is there. He's got the injury. So Jagielka could come in. But it's a good point. Who would you have instead? Because there is a lack of English centre-backs.
Curtis Davies.
Curtis Davies is the man,
the option.
Apparently.
Or Scott Dan. Maybe give Scott Dan the nod.
Shawcross.
I feel like Scott Dan's been good for a few years, and he's just ridiculously underrated because he plays for Crystal Palace. Genuinely think he's.
Yeah, they do have a scarily good squad.
I think
reference game on
well memed.
Well, I think there are players down the years, like Dan, who have done well and never seen the light of day. In the England squad, I think Allardyce will just be more the same with that regard.
Midfielders, Dele Alli, Mikel Antonio, of course, making his first cap, or May would get his first cap for England.
Well done, deserved, I think, really.
Yeah, Jack, have you got him on speed dial, or
not
on the list? No. Eric Dyer, Danny Drinkwater, Jordan Henderson, Adam Lallana, Raheem Sterling, Theo Walcott, and down as a midfielder, although Allardyce has kind of said it doesn't really matter where they go, is Wayne Rooney, which I think is curious. We'll come on to him in a moment. Harry Kane, Sturridge and Vardy round off the strikers. With Rooney then, he's been given the captaincy again, and I would like to put forward somebody else for captaincy. I don't know if you feel the same, boys, if you want to make a plea for someone else, but it's probably too late at this point. But I do think someone else should have got it and not Wayne Rooney.
Who do you think, Ben, should have got the captaincy?
I would have given the captaincy to John Stones, Keno. Because
that's interesting.
Because while I think that at the time that Rooney got it initially, it should have been given to Joe Hart at 29. Joe Hart won't be with this current crop of players for the next 10 years, whereas a man like John Stones will be. What goes against John Stones, is that he's not captain to anyone internationally. And sadly, I didn't get an aggressive reply by anyone on Twitter when I suggested this. But my comeback would have been that David Beckham wasn't a leader at Manchester United. He may have been in the dressing room, but he wasn't so much the captain of Manchester United when given the England captaincy, and it arguably defined his career because he was a model professional that was also good at the game. And I think John Stones, being this sort of young Englishman, should have been maybe given that role. He's under the perfect tutorship of Pep Guardiola. There was obviously talk that Jordan Henderson might have got it, which I don't think is as ridiculous as people think, by the way. Captain of the under-21s and is Liverpool captain, so he's got experience of being a captain. I think the argument say Harry Kane could have. I
feel the issue with John Stones is the fact that he isn't a nailed down starter for England.
He is now. He should be.
I feel like Smalling off the back of his end of season last year, where he played very, very well, and then you look at players like Cahill who have just played more. I don't think Stones will necessarily start the World Cup game.
But he should.
He should.
But he should. Agree. So whether he doesn't or not, Jack, he should be. He's 22. He's ready to do this. He's got 10 caps already. Get him in the England team. Start him, Sam.
The biggest tragedy really is the fact that Walcott has gone ahead of Jermaine Defoe. I was convinced that Sam Allardyce was going to bring... Well, the thing is, actually, I look at the England strike force of Kane, Sturridge and Vardy. Sturridge isn't playing for Liverpool at the moment. Kane's yet to get off the mark this season.
Jamie Vardy's a champion.
I'm actually a little bit worried about the England strike force. It looks like a great set of names on players, in terms of as players. But you actually look at how they've performed so far this season, and also how they performed in the summer. I mean, they've got a few critics to answer in this opening World Cup qualifier.
Would you have arguably okay? Well, two questions then. Would you have called up Rashford, and would you have taken Defoe over Sturridge?
I think you can make cases for both of them. I actually feel like with Rashford, that was one of the ones you offered, wasn't it? Rashford and Defoe.
Yeah.
With Rashford, I feel like he's going to benefit from playing in the under-21s. So there's no need to really rush him. He's going to develop nicely at United. I don't think he's necessarily going to be the nailed-down starter in this England squad. I don't think Defoe would be either. And so for him, it's kind of... he'll get loads more chances, and I'm sure he'll be called up before the end of the World Cup qualifying campaign. I think it's a case of he just needs to play a little bit more for United. Of course, coming on off the bench against Hull, it's going to be a tough side for him to break into, but if he can continue to perform as he has done when he's come on off the bench and how he finished last season, it's going to be difficult for Mourinho to justify excluding him.
Yeah.
I feel like Defoe...
Sorry, go on.
I mean, what is it, 143 goals he's got now? He's a goal scorer, and when you look at our kind of striking options and how we performed, I feel like, yes, he's old, but there's a reasonable reason to kind of take him that is just based off his form over the last kind of year, really, where he's been playing for a floundering Sunderland side. And also, of course, Allardyce knows him well from that last season.
Yeah, Is Luke Shaw fortunate, Jack, to be in this England squad? Obviously, Milner's retired.
No.
Would we have maybe said Milner at left back?
No, I think Shaw's the future option. Are you trolling here?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah, I am. Ahead of Danny Rose, because obviously Rose started every game. There's one more exclusion I want to talk about, but Rose started every game.
I think competition's good between those two players.
Who do you think's the first choice? I personally think Shaw is slightly above Because I think defensively he's a little stronger.
I think Rose might start this game, but I think by Christmas time, Shaw will have it nailed down. If he can stay fit, I still feel like there's a little bit of a question mark over him after having been out for so long. But I feel like his start for United this year has been... He's really impressed me, actually, at left back. I think he's slotted in there really nicely this year.
Final exclusion, Keno. Jack Wilshere doesn't make the squad.
No.
Shocked, or is it just the right choice, essentially?
The right choice.
I feel like
think.
you were both pro Wilshere prior to the Euros, and I was very anti Wilshere.
I still am when he plays.
But
I was, I think, but I think. Well, no, I think that. I mean, we didn't touch on it in the main part of the show, but I think him being on the loan list at Arsenal's the right move for him. I would like to see him get some experience elsewhere, and if he does that, we know that the player in there is good enough. But right now, it doesn't make sense, and I guess the problem for me with Sam's squad is the kind of inconsistency in some of the selections. It seems as though he's selecting some players on form, some players on their reputation, and there's not really a pattern. I'd say
he selects players on players he likes. I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing, because I think he has an idea in his head of how he wants England to play, and he's picked the players to fit that.
Does he though?
I think he'll have some degree of kind of planning in his mind as England manager as to what he might try in his opening game, and I think he's picked players in accordance with that.
Well, I guess we'll know when it's.
Can I just say, I've worked out Wenger's a genius. He's loaning out Wilshere because Juve have been linked with Jimmy Rod. And if they get in Wilshere as a centre mid option
What's
in
all
on
this
loan,
about Jimmy Rod today,
then Jimmy Rod can go to Arsenal because the Juve won't be in for him anymore. Genius.
I'm going to reveal about what time it is that we record, but I've just read something on Twitter that I cannot believe. It's not England related. I'm sorry, but I can't not mention it on the podcast. I've spent the last 2 minutes trying to figure out if it's fake. Apparently, Chelsea have made a bid for David Luiz.
I mean, if that happens, that's going to be amazing because they've been in for a centre back.
30 million.
I love that. Bring him back. Him and his little smile against United, when he baited the red card. That's what I remember him for. Bring him back. More characters in the Premier League.
Sky reporting it. Is that the most incredible thing you've heard today?
Yeah.
£32 million apparently that Chelsea would like to bring him back to Stamford Bridge after 2 years at PSG. I don't know what to do, boys. I've read it. It's thrown me completely.
I'm not sure he's the player that they need. Obviously, they've been after
free centre back.
Sorry, this is completely random.
3-5-2. It's coming.
I couldn't. It could be coming. You know what? It could be coming.
Luiz is a sweeper.
Yeah, that I think that pretty much wraps us up, boys. Overall, the England squad happy.
I'm excited to see how they go on. I'm sure we'll have a lot more to say after the one game, which I don't like the fact they're playing one game. Usually in an international break, you'd have a friendly or whatever. Don't like that. Is there
only one? We've not got two. I thought
if I'm wrong now, I'm going to check. But I had a look on the England.com website, and it told me one earlier.
You would hope, Jack, of all the places, that place would be correct, wouldn't you?
You would, wouldn't you? I mean, Google's not giving me any answers. It's told me that we play November against Spain in November.
Away at Slovakia, then in October we play Malta and Slovenia. Great, yeah.
And more time for quizzes.
November, it's Scotland and Spain. I mean, party time. Right, boys, I think that does bring us to the end. You can find us on SoundCloud nowadays. Isn't that right, Keno? Is it soundcloud.com/ForTheFansShow?
Same as all the others, yeah.
Lovely. Twitter @ForTheFansShow, YouTube.com/ForTheFansShow. If you've listened on YouTube, of course, do leave a like. If you've listened on iTunes, do remember to rate the show. We appreciate everyone supporting the show. And we've done a question this week, boys. We can't forget about that. We've got to quickly go to
I was thinking we could maybe save that for our transfer wrap-up. All
right, yeah, save it. We'll come back to it.
It's transfer related.
We've done some extra England chat here. So if we save that,
what we can also do is mention that if you want to get involved with the question is pinned on our Twitter.
On our Twitter.
Genius. So go and reply to it right now. Thank you, boys. Right then, that does bring us to the end. Jack, thank you for joining.
Thank you for having me.
Keno, pleasure as always.
Pleasure.
2-0 in the features.
I've been Ben, he's been Jack, and Keno. We'll see you again next time. Stop this! Right, other people do no more features. We love with care from your suspension. Until next time, we'll see you again very soon.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
You're not Paddy McGuinness.
Me? No, I'm Benji Walton.
It's a sculpture of a gold Benji. It's perfection. Keno, I think you're going to have to be calling for an oxygen mask over here, my friend.